Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Today I want to fix some stuff on the first gen Tacoma, but I also want to go over some of the issues and fixes that I've made to help with the water intrusion on the GFC. It's been a multi-month long battle trying to source where those issues are and then figure out a fix for them. So I want to go over today what I've done on the GFC which is the new GFC V2 Pro, and I was still having water intrusion issues right out of the gate. As soon as I picked it up after the first rain, already had water getting into the bed. So I want to go over what I did, and then I also got to do a fresh oil change on this thing because I just got back from a week-long camping trip down in Florida doing some kayaking, and that was a load of fun, but I put a lot of miles on the truck, and then I've got to go up to Virginia tomorrow for a film trip. So, you know, want to just make sure I got some fresh oil in there and fix a couple other things on the truck before I hit the road. So let's start off with the water intrusion stuff. So one of the biggest things that I did to the GFC V2 Pro to fix the water intrusion is removing these caps that go right here and right here. And these holes exist because there's a nut and bolt behind here that hold the bed clamps on. So to gain access to that, there's a hole here, and the GFC V2 Pro comes with these little plastic, kind of like 3D printed black caps that sit in cover these holes here. But what I found was they're actually so snug that they're watertight. And there are little drain holes on the end caps here on the very bottom of these silver end caps, but I'm talking like a couple millimeters. And in a heavy rain, these whole things here are hollow. This part of the frame was filling up with water, so much so that it was filling up to above the level where the bolt comes through on the bed mount, and then water was coming in through the bed mount into the truck bed instead of pouring out of here, and it was just so much rain that it wouldn't come out of here fast enough. So get rid of these, remove the caps. I've also thought about taking those caps and then drilling some holes in them, so that way I could at least retain the caps but also have drainage. We'll see. Right now, the look of it doesn't really bother me enough to put the caps back on and drill holes in them. So I just haven't been running them. But that was probably one of the biggest fixes I had to make. And it's such an obvious one. But like one day after it rained, I just pulled one of the caps off and literally just water came dumping out of here. And I don't have that issue anymore where the water fills up from this part and then pours into the bed, because there's obviously such a large hole here and here that the water can get out fast enough, and it's just not been an issue. So remove those caps. I wouldn't throw them away. I'm also gonna maybe look at drilling some holes into them, like I was saying, to allow some drainage to still happen, but then it still visually looks better because you don't have this gaping hole here. But maybe we'll do that later on in this video, perhaps another day. I would say probably the second most important thing that I've changed on the GFC setup to prevent water from getting into the truck bed is actually the bed seal. This seal that runs along the truck bed and the GFC, going this way on the bed rails, as well as up front here. I swapped that out for one that I think is better and is honestly performed better. I initially had GFC install my Go Fast camper, and they installed whatever they use for their bed seal. But what they do is they make this its own piece, the front area its own piece, and then its own piece on the other side. So it's actually 3 separate pieces of seal. And what happens is in these corners here where they've cut the gasketing, it's not connected. So there's that imperfect connection there where water was getting in. So what I had to do was order a new bed seal. This one is actually rated for camper tops that are up to, I want to say like 250 to 300 pounds. So it's a much more heavy duty seal, and I'll have a link down in the description if you guys want to scoop one up. But even just touching it and feeling it right out of the package, it's a lot more durable feeling bed seal. So what I did was I kept it as one piece, and I just notched the corners out on the outside to allow the, the bed seal to bend around the corners, but it's still a full seal. It's not fully cut through. It's only cut enough so that way it can make that kind of, what would that be, 45 degree, 90 degree bend there. So that way It's all one seal running from here all the way around and then all the way through the other side. And that on top of some butyl tape that I've mashed into my first gen Tacoma bed corners right here, because at least this is not for every truck, but on the first gen Tacoma, there's little divots right up here that water was still getting into. So I put a little bit of butyl tape, filled that area, and then put the new gasket around the whole thing. And that has made a massive difference, because what was happening before was I was getting a ton of water intrusion up near the front here. Obviously the corners were really bad, but then also the entire front end here was just leaking a ton into the bed. So far so good. On a really heavy rainfall, or if I spray water when I'm cleaning the truck right directly in this area, sometimes I will get a little bit of water dribbling down these corners, but it's not a big enough deal where I'm worried about it anymore. So that definitely a must do. If you have GFC, install your GFC. I'd be curious if you could ask them to make those notches in the corners instead of cutting it, and see if that works, because maybe their gasket is good enough, but it's just the fact that how they're cutting it was creating an issue for these things. So don't cut the corners, make it all one piece, and should be in a lot better shape. Without disassembling these caps, using a little Allen key to take this bolt out, these silver caps that are on both this end and the end up near the truck cab, if you take those off after you've put your new gasket on, you can actually kind of trim back the gasket enough, because what you'll find is at the very bottom of this silver piece, there's a little hole that I was talking about. It's like only a couple millimeters wide, and that's what GFC is using basically to allow drainage out of this entire section here. So on both this end and the other end, there's a tiny little hole, but what happens is this bed gasket ends up overlapping that hole and covering it so the water can't escape. So what I did was, after I put my new gasket on, I removed all of these silver caps and just cut away the gasket just beyond the silver plate, so that way that hole at the very bottom of this plate here is still open and can allow drainage. The other thing I did, and you guys have probably had to deal with this on every truck cap you've ever owned, is stuff some butyl tape right in this corner here. It's still not perfect. Like, I can still see a hole there. I probably need to go back and add more, but water was basically just pouring off of here and then right into the truck bed in this corner right here. So stuffing some butyl tape while still allowing this to open and close is going to help fill up this area. I've also seen people run some foam tape along the inside of their tailgate here. There's all sorts of little tricks that you can do, and that's not necessarily a GFC issue. That is every camper topper has basically ever existed. You always end up getting some water intrusion right in this area here, but definitely go back after you put your new gasket on, take these caps off, cut the gasket away enough so that way that drain hole is not covered up, reinstall these, and don't forget to put your blue Loctite back on this little Allen head bolt right here. So I guess while we're out here talking about it, I may as well try my little modification with the holes being drilled into these. So I'm just gonna grab, I might start with, you know what, I'm gonna go with one size bigger. I'm gonna go whatever size this is, 3/16 drill bit. And I'm basically gonna drill some holes along the bottom of each of these caps, so that way water can hopefully still get out. This is just gonna be one of those like, try it and see how it works out kind of things. But still 3 holes. I think 3 will be enough. That does not drill out nearly as easily as I thought it would. Let's go down a size and drill bit. See if we can get some like pilot holes drilled. So we'll do 3 of those, and then I'll go back and widen these out a little bit. This rubbery plastic stuff does not want to drill out very cleanly. I suppose if you sat here for a long time and worked on this, you could probably get some decent holes drilled out, but it's just kind of making them look like crap. Scratch that, I have another idea. I'm gonna use this tool, which I use for leather crafting, and it's basically just a hole punch. I'm gonna see if I can clean up these holes on here. Maybe make them look a little bit better. So not perfect, but that actually is way better than the drill. So if you guys have access to one of these, that's the way to go. So I'm gonna do 3 holes on the rest of these and then reinstall. So really easy, we'll just reinstall these. They just push into place, and we'll make sure that the holes are on the bottom. And don't take my word for it yet. I'll let you guys know in a future video if this works out, but I don't see why it wouldn't help. And I could probably, if that hole punch was bigger, I'd probably even do bigger holes on this, but I think for now, this will do the trick. So on this last trip to Florida, on the way back for about the last 250 miles or so, I put some seafoam in the fuel tank, which I like to do pretty often, but then if I remember to do so when I know I'm approaching the need for an oil change, I will put some seafoam in the crankcase up here in the motor. And if anyone's not done that before, literally just pour, I think it's 1 ounce for every quart of oil that your engine takes, right into where you fill up your oil in your motor. So I put, I want to say like I put 5 ounces of seafoam in, because this truck takes a little bit more than 5 quarts of oil. So what I'm gonna do is do an oil change. And the seafoam, when you run it they say to run it for a few hundred miles, I think 300 miles before your oil change. That allows the seafoam to have time to clean up the inside of the motor. So what I'm expecting is the oil to probably be a little more black than it was before I put the seafoam in. And hopefully that's because it's loosening up all the deposits and cleaning up the inside of the motor. And then last time I did an oil change, I actually put a magnetic oil drain plug, where the bolt that goes into the oil pan where you drain from. I swapped that out from the OEM one to a magnetic one. So reason for that is if there's little metal shavings inside, it should catch that using the magnet. And basically when you do the oil change, you just wipe off the magnet, and that helps from having those shavings be constantly rerun through your motor and just staying inside of it. But with the magnet, we should be able to pull that out. So today I'm gonna do an oil change. Start by loosening up the fill cap, which I put a new one on because the gasket on my old one was toast. And now that I have a new one with a nice gasket on it, it's a lot harder to open. But what I do is don't totally take it off, because you don't want any debris falling in your motor, but I just loosen it so that way, and your dipstick, I pull that out a little bit just to allow the oil to not like gulp its way out. When you pop the drain plug out, it flows out a little bit nicer. So hop underneath the truck, drain the oil. I also, let me see if I can show you. I turn my wheel this way because the oil filter on this motor, it's the 3.4 5EZFE, is on this side. And if you turn your wheel out, it just makes accessing that filter a little bit easier. So we're gonna get our drain pan underneath here and set it back. Oil drain pan is right here. Can't remember if it looks like a 14. It is a 14. I gotta grab an extension. We'll just loosen this up. There we go. Get our drain pan ready to go. I should honestly just take the rear plate off. I have the front one off because I don't even remember. I was doing something under here and just never put it back on, but I gotta do that. And then it's a little bit messier if you don't take this pan off in the back, but I'm gonna try my best here. There we go. And definitely looking a little black. So when I put the seafoam in, it definitely was not that bad. So I presume the seafoam did some good in there with pulling some contaminants out. And I'm gonna try and remember to do that, like I said, 200 to 300 miles before every oil change, just as a precaution, and kind of slowly but surely over the miles help clean up the inside of the motor. But once this is not going to overflow and spill all over my garage floor, I will hop out of here and we can take a look at the magnetic plug and see if there's metal shavings on here, how much, and if it made a difference. But please don't spill on my driveway. Here we've got our magnetic drain plug, and you can definitely see a little bit of black up there. So we'll wipe this off. Actually, I'll use my finger first. Just really, really fine stuff. So definitely nothing for concern. But we'll make sure we wipe that entirely clean. So that way we can kind of make sure we're running with a clean drain plug for the next oil change and see if there's more, or just see if there's any difference. So just this little magnet tip on top there, I believe it retains the same, I'll have a link in the description again, guys, for you, but retains the same 14 mil bolt as the OEM. So just plug and play, but with a magnetic tip to it. And then obviously make sure you're using a fresh gasket for your drain plug every time you do an oil change. So I have probably a dozen of these things at any given time. So that way I never run into that scenario where I have to reuse one. So part number from Toyota right there for you guys. Now normally I run a Toyota filter. There's your part number for a 5EZFE. And the only difference is this time I got an oil package from Advanced Auto Parts. So I'm going to use one of their filters this time around. I don't think it's really going to make that much of a difference, but I usually tend to use Toyota OEM, including Toyota oil. So going a little cheap this time, but it's expensive, you know? So now getting the oil filter out is definitely my least favorite part of the entire process. So what I tend to do is take a bag, grocery bag that does not have any holes in it. I am short enough that I can basically sit, and my truck sits tall enough that I can actually sit up in this wheel well. So I'm as close as possible to that oil filter, but I tend to wrap this kind of around the filter while it's attached to the motor and kind of use it as a catch can. So when I unscrew the filter, the oil that's still in it doesn't just pour onto the floor, but hopefully gets caught in here. Unscrew the filter, drop it into the bag, pull the bag out, replace it with a new filter. So easier said than done every time. But we'll see how I do this time. But this is why I turn the wheel to the side. A little bit of oil dripping, so I'll just move the catch can and then get our new filter ready to go. So we'll pop the factory seal off of it and take a little bit of this oil and put it on the ring there. So that way when we go to change the oil in the future, it's not stuck on. And then we'll add a little bit of oil to the threads. And our new filter's ready to go. Okay, and old filter's out. We'll just rest that on the drain pan. Get our new filter screwed on. And I never use a wrench on these. I just go hand tight. And I've never had an issue with leaking. So hopefully this filter doesn't do me wrong. Now we can hop back under. This is pretty much done dripping out of here from the oil pan. And always make sure that your old gasket or washer, crush washer, comes off with the drain bolt. Like mine did not, so you don't want to double up on those. So make sure you pull the old one off. We've got our new one installed, and we'll go ahead and pop that right on there. That's actually a pretty strong magnet, so as I was trying to put it in, it was like magnetizing to the oil pan. So pretty solid upgrade. I definitely recommend it because it can't hurt anything. So we'll go ahead and just finger tighten that, and then the drain bolt on this motor gets torqued down to 29 foot-pounds. So just get the torque wrench on there, and we're looking for 29 foot-pounds. And there you have it. The hard part of the oil change is done. Just clean up all this oil that I spilled. Now, I presume that you all know how to fill up your oil and read a dipstick, so I'm not gonna explain that one. I guess the only tip I have for you is to, while the engine's cold, fill it up until you get to your fill level on your dipstick, and then run the truck and let it get up to operating temp, and then just double check it, because you might find that the level drops a little bit, but that's at least how I do it. And like I was saying before, usually I run Toyota oil in this, but I wasn't expecting to have to go on this trip so soon, and the dealership was closed, and I can get a better deal, honestly, at the auto parts store. So this time the truck's not getting the full treatment. It's just gonna be some 5W30 full synthetic, so it's gonna have to work. So now that she's up to temp, grab our rag once more and just check the dipstick and make sure that we are still on the right level. But typically I have to add just a little bit more. Yeah, same deal as always. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more oil, and then we'll check it again and call it a day on the oil change. But next up, as part of my oil change routine, I always rotate my tires. So if you guys remember, I just put on some new wheels, some Stealth Custom Series wheels, as well as some new Falcon, what are they, Wild Peak AT4s on this truck. So first rotation, and what I do is bring the backs, the rear tires, straight to the front, and then I take the fronts and I cross them to the back. And that's at least how I have been told to do it on a four-wheel drive truck. So that's the plan. I'm gonna top this off and then get started on rotating the tires. So wheels have been rotated. I also take this time to wash the inner barrels on the wheels while I have them off the truck, just because it's a lot easier to clean them while they're off. And I find that if I do that every oil change along with rotations, the wheels stay a lot cleaner, the tires stay properly balanced, and I'm gonna go ahead and torque everything down to 85 foot-pounds for the lug nuts. Might need an extension on this boy. Whew, it's a hot and humid one here in Tennessee today, I'll tell you that much. 85. So I'll just work my way around all the wheels, get these tightened down, and then should be on our way. Well, there you have it, my friends. Hopefully this helped some of you guys out on your oil changes, or maybe some GFC water intrusion issues that you're having. If you got a first gen Tacoma, I think this video is quite relatable. But I will see you guys in the next one, where hopefully we'll be either installing some new parts that I'm patiently waiting to arrive in the mail on the third gen Prelude, or might just take this thing out camping, do some fishing. I haven't caught a fish yet this year, although I've been out a couple times. So I'm itching to get the truck out there into the wilderness, find a river, catch a fish. Heck, maybe we'll even do a catch and cook. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. Keep elevating, my friends. And also happy Memorial Day, as this video was recorded on Memorial Day and hopefully uploaded on Memorial Day. So thank you to all you veterans out there. And thank you all to those who basically gave the ultimate sacrifice protecting this country. So happy Memorial Day to you all. Take care. I will see you in the next one. Keep elevating. Adios.